The stars burned red across the viewing screen. Admiral Daewon Kim watched another coalition ship explode into fragments of metal and fire. That made 18 ships lost in the last hour. The Vrexian horde was winning, just like they always did. Daewon stood on the bridge of his flagship, hands clasped behind his back. His crew was quiet. They knew what was happening out there. The coalition fleet was dying. 12 years of war, and the elder races were losing to an enemy they barely understood. Admiral, General Rixval is ordering all unauthorized vessels to withdraw, his communications officer said. The young woman's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. Daewon almost smiled. Unauthorized. That was one way to describe humanity's position in this war. Earth had begged to help. The coalition had refused. Humans were too young, too primitive, too weak. 50 years of space travel meant nothing to races that had sailed between stars for thousands of years. Ignore the order, Daewon said. Get me Captain Lee. Hana Lee's face appeared on the screen. Her ship, the Indomitable, was humanity's finest warship. Behind her, Daewon could see her bridge crew working frantically. I see it, Admiral. They're fighting the old way again. Formation tactics. Honor combat. It's not working. No, Daewon agreed. It never does. He pulled up a tactical display. The Vrexian forces moved like a swarm, adapting and overwhelming. The coalition ships held their neat formations, following doctrine that was older than human civilization. It was like watching knights fight against machine guns. There, Daewon pointed to a spot on the display. Their left flank is overextended. They're focused on the frontal assault. If we hit them from behind with our stealth ships, we can break their formation. Hana studied the display. Rixval will never approve it. He'll call it cowardly. Then we don't ask for approval, Daewon said quietly. Prepare your strike teams. Hit fast, hit hard, and get out. Make them chase you. Give the coalition fleet time to retreat. On the main display, General Rixval's scaled face appeared. The Kavrite general's eyes were cold with fury. Human vessels, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. You have no authority in this combat zone. Daewon opened his own channel. General, your fleet is being destroyed. Let us help. We do not need the help of children playing at war, Rixval growled. We fight with honor. We stand and face our enemy. We do not hide and strike from shadows like vermin. Honor won't save your ships, Daewon said. Let me show you another way. No, Rixval's word was final. All coalition vessels maintain formation. Prepare for frontal assault. We will break through their lines or die trying. The channel closed. Daewon watched as the coalition fleet charged forward. Brave, stupid, dead. Another 6 ships exploded in the first minute. The Vrexians adapted instantly, reinforcing their front line and preparing to envelope the coalition forces. Admiral? Hana's voice was quiet. Your orders? Daewon made his decision. Execute the flanking maneuver. All human ships. We're going in. Sir, we'll be disobeying direct orders, his tactical officer said. Yes, Daewon said. We will. But those people out there are dying because their leaders are too proud to change. Someone has to do something. 7 human ships broke formation and accelerated. They were small compared to the massive coalition battleships. Their stealth systems activated, making them nearly invisible. The Vrexians didn't notice them until it was too late. Hana led the attack. The Indomitable dropped out of stealth right behind the Vrexian rearguard. Her weapons lit up the darkness. Missile barrages, railgun fire, and plasma bursts struck targets that weren't expecting an attack from behind. 3 Vrexian ships exploded before they could react. But humans didn't stay to fight. That was the trick. Hit and run. Strike and vanish. The human ships scattered, using guerrilla tactics that Earth had perfected through centuries of warfare. They appeared, attacked, and disappeared back into stealth before the Vrexians could respond effectively. The Vrexian formation broke. Confusion spread through their ranks. Ships turned to face the new threat, breaking their pressure on the coalition fleet. Some Vrexian vessels left the main battle to hunt the human ships, dividing their forces. Now, Daewon broadcast on the coalition frequency. General Rixval, withdraw your forces. We've given you an opening. Use it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the coalition fleet began to retreat. Slowly at first, then faster. They pulled back through the gap the humans had created. The Vrexians tried to pursue, but the human ships kept harassing them, striking from unexpected angles, keeping them off balance. But there was a cost. 2 human ships were caught and destroyed. Day One watched their signals vanish from his display. Good people. Brave crews. Dead because they chose to help an alliance that didn't want them. All human vessels retreat to Rally Point Beta. Day One ordered. His remaining 5 ships pulled back, their stealth systems hiding them as they escaped the battle zone. Hours later, the human fleet arrived at a coalition station. They were met not with gratitude but with armed security ships. Day One's screen lit up with an official coalition order. He was under arrest for insubordination, unauthorized engagement, and violation of combat protocols. "Admiral, they're serious," Hana said over the comm. "They want to take us into custody." "I know," Day One said. "Let them. We'll answer for what we did." He didn't regret his choice. They had saved coalition lives. If that meant facing charges, so be it. The detention cell was small but clean. Day One sat alone thinking about the battle. 2 ships lost, good crews dead, and for what? To prove that humans could fight? To show the coalition their tactics were failing? The door opened. A figure entered. Counselor Velamora moved with the careful grace of her insectoid species. Her compound eyes studied him. She was ancient by human standards, having lived through 3 centuries of galactic politics. "Admiral Kim," she said, her voice clicking through a translator, "you disobeyed direct orders." "Yes," Day One said simply. "You violated our combat protocols." "Yes." "You fought without honor, striking from hiding using deception and cowardice." "I fought to win," Day One said. "There's a difference." Velamora was silent for a long moment. "You also saved 4,000 lives. Coalition crews who would have died if you hadn't intervened." She moved closer. "General Rixval wants you executed. Other counselors want you expelled from Coalition space. But I have been thinking." "About what?" Day One asked. "We have been losing this war for 12 years, Velamora said. We fight with honor. We follow ancient traditions. We maintain our dignity, and we die. One world after another falls. Perhaps," she paused, "perhaps we need to learn a new way." "You want to fight like humans," Day One said. "I want to survive," Velamora corrected. "Tell me, Admiral, if you commanded coalition forces, how would you fight this war differently?" Day One looked at her. This ancient being who had seen empires rise and fall was asking a human for advice. It was unprecedented. It was also perhaps the galaxy's last hope. "Everything would change," he said quietly. "Your tactics, your strategies, your understanding of what war means. You won't like it. It won't be honorable or noble or glorious, but we would win." Velamora's compound eyes reflected the dim light. "Show me," she said. "Show us how humans fight. The Council will decide if we are desperate enough to learn." She left him alone in the cell. Day One stared at the walls, thinking about what he had just agreed to. If the Coalition accepted, humanity would change the galaxy forever. They would teach these ancient races something humans had learned through blood and fire across thousands of years. War wasn't about honor. It was about survival. And humans had survived everything Earth could throw at them. Now they would teach the galaxy what that meant. The tide was about to turn, and nothing would ever be the same again. 2,000 Vrexian warships appeared at the edge of the Trinity systems. It was the largest fleet anyone had seen in the 12-year war. Warlord Zenthak commanded personally, leading his forces in what the Vrexians called the breaking. If they won here, the coalition would collapse. Billions would die. The war would end. Admiral Daewon Kim stood on his flagship with 1,200 coalition ships. It was everything they had left. Humans and aliens together, trained in the tactics that had saved them but changed them forever. This was it. The final battle. Win or lose everything. They outnumber us almost 2-1, Captain Hanali said. She commanded the new Indomitable II, rebuilt after her previous ship's destruction. Her crew was mixed, humans and aliens who had learned to trust each other through blood and fire. Numbers don't matter if we fight smart, Daewon said, but even he wasn't sure this time. The Vrexians had learned everything. They fought like humans now, dirty, clever, ruthless. This wouldn't be like the old battles where coalition honor made them predictable. Both sides knew all the tricks now. Daewon unveiled his plan. Operation Last Stand. Instead of concentrating their fleet in traditional formation, they would scatter into dozens of small task forces. Each group would operate independently, striking where the Vrexians were weak, avoiding their strength. It was chaos versus order, the ultimate test of everything humanity had taught the galaxy. "You're asking us to trust each other completely," a Drellian commander said. "No central command. No formation support. Just faith that everyone will do their part." "Yes," Day One said. "That's exactly what I'm asking." "Can you do it?" The commanders looked at each other. Humans and aliens who had fought together for months. They had learned to trust human tactics. Now they had to trust each other. Slowly, one by one, they nodded. Dr. Jae-hyun Park and engineer So-min Kang prepared their final surprise. The Cascade Network. It was an artificial intelligence system that would link every coalition ship into one massive thinking machine. Ships could coordinate instantly, react faster than any enemy, adapt to any situation. But there was a risk. The AI would need to connect with the minds of every crew member. Human and alien consciousness networked together. It had never been tested in combat. It could cause permanent brain damage, Dr. Misuno warned. "We don't know how alien and human minds will interact at that level. People could be hurt. Some might not survive the connection." "Do it," Day One ordered. "We need every advantage. Tell all crews to prepare for network activation." Commander Taemin Ryu led a desperate mission. His special operations team would infiltrate Warlord Zenthak's flagship, not to kill him but to steal intelligence. They needed to understand how the Vrexians coordinated such a massive fleet. If they could disrupt that coordination, the battle might be winnable. The battle began. 2,000 Vrexian ships advanced in perfect formation. They expected the coalition to meet them head-on. Instead, the coalition fleet scattered. Dozens of small task forces broke away, moving in different directions. The Vrexians hesitated, confused. "Activate the Cascade Network," Day One ordered. Throughout the fleet, crew members felt the connection form. Human thoughts touched alien minds. Different species, different ways of thinking, all linked together. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and terrifying. For a moment, they weren't individuals anymore. They were one being with 1,000 eyes, fighting as a single organism. The coalition task forces moved with impossible coordination. They flowed around Vrexian formations like water. When one group was threatened, others came to help without being asked. When opportunities appeared, ships were already moving to exploit them. The Cascade Network worked beyond anyone's expectations. Hana Lee's task force struck at a Vrexian supply convoy. Her ships moved in perfect harmony, human aggression combined with alien discipline. They destroyed the convoy and vanished before reinforcements arrived. "This is amazing," she broadcast on the network. "I can feel everyone. I know what you're all thinking." Lieutenant Yu-jin Choi led combined fighter wings through Vrexian formations. Her squadron was a perfect mix of species, each pilot's strengths complementing the others. They flew patterns that seemed impossible. Their minds linked so they moved as one creature. Vrexian fighters fell by the dozens, but the Vrexians adapted. Warlord Zenthak recognized the Cascade Network and ordered all his ships to focus fire on communication nodes. Coalition ships began dropping out of the network, isolated and vulnerable. The perfect coordination started to break down. Ryu's team reached Zenthak's flagship. They fought through corridors facing Vrexian soldiers who had learned human close combat tactics. The fighting was brutal. 3 of Ryu's team died reaching the command center. But they made it. Zenthak stood waiting for them. The Vrexian warlord was massive, his carapace scarred from 100 battles. He didn't draw a weapon. He just watched as Ryu and his surviving team member aimed their guns at him. "You've come to kill me," Zenthak said, speaking perfect human language. "But you won't because you need information. You want to understand how we coordinate our fleet." "Yes," Ryu said. "Tell us and we might let you live." "I'll tell you something better," Zenthak said. "I'll tell you why we're really fighting this war. The truth that changes everything." He showed them data, images, historical records. The Vrexian horde hadn't started as conquerors. They had been refugees. 50 years ago, an extragalactic force had attacked their home worlds. The Vrexians had fought and lost. Billions died. The survivors fled into coalition space, desperate and afraid. "We asked for sanctuary," Zenthak said. The coalition refused. "They said we were too warlike, too dangerous. So we took what we needed. We fought because you left us no choice. We're not monsters. We're survivors. Just like humans," Ryu stared at the data. It was real. The coalition had records of the Vrexian request for asylum. Records that had been buried and forgotten. The entire war was based on a decision made decades ago by people who were probably dead now. You can share this truth, Zenthak said, or you can keep fighting. Your choice, Commander. But know that the extragalactic force that destroyed our worlds is still out there, and it's coming this way. We could fight each other until we're all dead, or we could prepare for the real enemy. Ryu made his decision. He transmitted everything to Admiral Day-Wan. The truth. The whole truth. He broadcast it on all Coalition and Vrexian frequencies. Both sides heard it at the same time. The war had been a mistake. A terrible, bloody mistake. The fighting didn't stop immediately. Some ships on both sides kept attacking, too committed to the war to accept peace. But slowly, more and more vessels held their fire. Day-One broadcast on all channels. Cease fire. All Coalition forces cease fire. We've been fighting the wrong war. Zenthak gave similar orders to his fleet. But the war's momentum was hard to stop. Hana Lee found herself fighting Vrexian ships that refused to stand down. Extremists on both sides who would rather die than accept peace. The battle continued for hours, becoming a fight against those who couldn't let go of hatred. Counselor Velmora negotiated with Zenthak directly. Two leaders exhausted and grieving, trying to end a war that should never have started. Ambassador Unji-Han helped broker the agreement. Colony rights for Vrexian refugees, joint defense against the extragalactic threat, a new alliance built on the ruins of the old war. The Trinity systems were saved. The Coalition survived. But the cost had been terrible. 40% of Coalition forces were destroyed. 50% of Vrexian ships. Millions dead on both sides. Day-Wan looked at the casualty reports and felt the weight of every life. We won, Hana said, standing beside him on the bridge. Her voice was empty. Did we? Day-Wan asked. Look at what we became. Look at what we taught them. The galaxy learned to fight like humans. Was that victory? We survived, Hana said. That has to count for something. Maybe, Day-Wan said. But now we have to face what comes next. The real threat. The thing that destroyed the Vrexian homeworlds. And we'll face it as a galaxy that knows how to fight dirty. We'll face it as a galaxy that humans taught total war. The ceasefire held. Slowly, carefully, the two sides began to trust each other. It wasn't easy. Too much blood had been spilled. Too many lives lost. But they had no choice. The extragalactic threat was real. And they would need everything they had learned, everything humanity had taught them to survive what was coming. The tide of war had shifted. The galaxy would never be the same, and somewhere beyond the rim, something worse was heading their way. 6 months of victory changed everything. Admiral Day-Wan Kim commanded 3 sectors now. His battle group had grown to 100 ships. The human doctrine was standard throughout Coalition forces. They were winning battles they would have lost a year ago. But the price was getting harder to bear. Operation Crimson Dawn was the largest offensive the Coalition had launched in years. 3 industrial systems that the Vrexians had captured. Day-Wan's plan was aggressive and ruthless. They would use every human tactic available. Deception, psychological warfare, strategic bombardment, total war. Captain Hana Lee led the assault on the first system. Her ship, still called Indomitable despite being her 3rd vessel with that name, struck hard and fast. The Vrexians were caught off guard. They expected honor combat. Instead, Hana's forces used false signals to split the enemy fleet, then destroyed them in pieces. The system fell in 3 days. But during the final evacuation of Coalition civilians, the Vrexians launched a desperate counterattack. The Indomitable took the full force of the assault, staying behind to cover the transport ships. Hana's ship was torn apart. She survived, but half her crew didn't. Day-Wan found her in the medical bay 2 days later. Burns covered her arms. Her eyes were hollow. I gave the order to stay, she said quietly. I knew what would happen. I sent those people to their deaths. You saved thousands of civilians, Day-Wan said. That's what commanders do. We make the terrible choices. I know, Hana said. That's what makes it worse. I'd do it again. I'd give the same order, and more people would die. That's what we've become. Dr. Mi-Sun-Oh was a psychologist assigned to the Human Coalition Integrated Forces. Her job was to help crews adjust to the new way of fighting. But her reports painted a dark picture. Coalition species were suffering psychological trauma at unprecedented rates. Depression, anxiety, moral injury. They can't process it, Mi-Sun explained to Day-Wan. These species evolved with ritualized warfare. Combat had rules and meaning. Now we're asking them to abandon everything they believe about right and wrong. Some of them are breaking. 3 coalition officers had already requested transfers off human-led vessels. 2 more had simply deserted. The war was being won, but the warriors were being destroyed. Commander Taemin Ryu's Special Operations Team achieved a major intelligence victory. They captured a Vrexian officer deep in enemy territory. The interrogation revealed something shocking. The Vrexians had been studying Earth. Specifically, they had been studying human history, World War II, Vietnam, Iraq, every brutal conflict humanity had ever fought. Their warlord, Zenthak, he understands us now, Ryu reported to Daewon. He's learned everything about human warfare, and he's teaching it to his forces. We created this, Admiral. We showed them how to fight dirty. Now they're using our own tactics against us. The proof came during the Battle of Varathi Station. Coalition forces, including 2 entire battle groups, pursued what appeared to be a retreating Vrexian fleet. The enemy ships seemed damaged and disorganized. They transmitted distress signals. Some even sent surrender requests. It was a trap. The Vrexians had learned deception from humanity. They had learned false signals and psychological manipulation. When the coalition fleet moved in, the Vrexians sprung an ambush that was pure human doctrine, hidden forces, overwhelming firepower. No mercy. Lieutenant Yujin Choi, now commanding her own squadron, watched in horror as coalition ships were destroyed around her. "They're using our tactics," she broadcast. "Pull back." It's an ambush. But pulling back was hard when the enemy had studied human pursuit tactics. The Vrexians chased the coalition fleet, harassing them, picking off stragglers. It was exactly what human forces would do. The battle lasted 8 hours and ended with massive coalition losses. 23 ships destroyed. Thousands dead. Among the dead was General Rixval. The old Kavrit warrior had been observing the battle from a coalition cruiser. When the trap was sprung, he had taken command and fought bravely. His ship was destroyed, covering the retreat of other vessels. He died saving human and alien crews alike, the same crews he had once called cowards. Daewon attended the memorial service. He stood with other officers while they honored Rixval's sacrifice. The general had hated human tactics. He had fought against their adoption, but in the end he had died using those same tactics to save others. He understood at the end, Velmora said quietly, standing beside Daewon. He understood that survival requires sacrifice. Even the sacrifice of principles, does that make it right? Daewon asked. "I don't know anymore," the ancient counselor said. "I used to think I understood the difference between right and wrong. Now I just know the difference between alive and dead." Political pressure mounted after the Varathi disaster. Several coalition species began questioning whether human methods had gone too far. They argued that becoming like the Vrexians meant the war was already lost, even if they won battles. Ambassador Yoonji Han faced a tribunal on the coalition capital world. She stood before the High Council and defended humanity's role in the war. "Yes, we changed you," she said. "Yes, we taught you things that go against your values. But you were dying. Your beautiful principles meant nothing if you all went extinct. And if we become monsters to survive?" one counselor asked. "If we win this war but lose our souls? Then you'll have time to find them again," Yoonji said. "Dead civilizations don't get redemption arcs. You survive first. You figure out who you want to be later." Dr. Jae-hyun Park was having his own crisis. He stood in his laboratory, looking at the weapons he had designed. Smart minds that could think and adapt. Drone swarms that hunted ships like wolves hunting prey. Electronic warfare systems that drove enemy crews insane. He had created nightmares. Engineer So-Min Kang found him there, staring at his work. "They're asking us to build worse," Park said quietly. "More lethal. More efficient at killing. And I know how to do it. That's what scares me. I'm good at this." "We all are," So-Min said. "Humans are very good at killing. We've had lots of practice. The question is whether that makes us evil or just survivors." "I don't know anymore," Park admitted. "I thought I was saving lives. But every weapon I build just makes the killing more efficient. At what point do I become responsible for all the death?" The Vrexians gave him no time for philosophical debate. They launched another major offensive, this time targeting supply routes. Daewon's forces responded, but the fighting was brutal. Both sides used human tactics now. Both sides fought without honor or mercy. The war had become a grinding, horrible thing with no glory left in it. Daewon made a decision that would haunt him. Dr. Park had developed experimental weapons, hunter-killer drones controlled by advanced artificial intelligence. They were autonomous, tireless, and absolutely lethal. They were also potentially uncontrollable. Park had recommended against their use. Too dangerous, he said. Too much risk of losing control. Daewon authorized their deployment anyway. We need every advantage, he told Park. Release them. The hunter-killer drones worked perfectly. They systematically tracked down and destroyed Vrexian command ships. The enemy fleet fell into chaos without leadership. Coalition forces won the battle decisively, but the victory felt empty. Look at what we've done, Hana said, reviewing the battle footage. The drones had been efficient and merciless. They showed no hesitation, no compassion. They were pure killing machines. We created robots to do our fighting because even we can't stomach what war has become. Daewon sat alone in his quarters that night. The victories were piling up. The coalition was pushing the Vrexians back. They were winning the war, but he felt like he was losing something more important. He looked at his reflection and barely recognized himself. Velamora visited him. She moved slowly, her ancient body showing the weight of stress. The council is divided, she said. Half want to give you more authority. Half want to remove you entirely.
We are winning, Admiral.
But we are also losing ourselves. What do you want me to do? Daewon asked. Fight with one hand tied behind my back? Use tactics that feel good but don't work? More people will die if we do that. I know, Velamora said. That's what makes this so hard. You're right. Your methods work. But they're changing us in ways I don't think we understand yet. Will we recognize ourselves when this war ends? Will we even want to? She left him with that question. Daewon didn't sleep that night. He thought about Earth's history, the wars that had shaped humanity, the terrible things people had done to survive. He had brought all of that to the galaxy. He had taught ancient noble species to fight like humans, and humans fought dirty. A priority alert interrupted his thoughts. Intelligence had decoded major Vrexian communications. The news was terrifying. The Vrexians were preparing for a final offensive. They were gathering every ship, every soldier, every resource. Their target was the Trinity systems, the heart of Coalition space. 3 heavily populated worlds that housed billions of civilians and the Coalition government itself. If the Trinity fell, the war was over. And the Vrexians were planning to use every human tactic they had learned. Deception, overwhelming force, Totava. 3 Coalition worlds fell in the month after the Battle of Thandros Prime. The High Council met in emergency session every day. Some wanted to surrender, others wanted to fight harder using the same old tactics. And a few, a very few, listened to Counselor Velamora when she spoke about the humans. Admiral Daewon Kim stood before the council. He wore his dress uniform, clean and pressed despite his time in detention. Around him, representatives of 17 species watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. You want us to abandon our principles, one counselor said. His species valued honor above all else. To fight like savages. No, Daewon said calmly. I want you to survive. Your principles are beautiful. Your honor is admirable. But they're killing you. The Vrexians don't fight fair. Why should you? The debate lasted hours. Finally, Velamora proposed a compromise. Give humanity command of one sector. Just one. If they succeeded, the Council would consider expanding human authority. If they failed, Earth would be expelled from Coalition space forever. The vote was close, but desperation won. Daewon was given the Outer Reach, a sector containing 3 inhabited worlds and critical supply routes. He had 30 ships, 10 human, and 20 Coalition. The Coalition crews didn't trust him. Some openly refused to follow orders from a human. Captain Hana Lee helped train the mixed crews. She gathered them in her briefing room, humans and aliens standing together. Everything you know about warfare is wrong, she told them. Formation tactics are predictable. Honor combat is suicide. The Vrexians win because they adapt and you don't. A Cavrite officer stood. You call us predictable? You insult our traditions? No, Hana said. I'm trying to save your life. Your traditions are thousands of years old. They worked when everyone fought the same way. But the Vrexians don't care about your traditions. They care about winning. Dr. Jae-hyun Park worked in the research labs with engineer So-min Kang. They were developing new weapons by combining human creativity with coalition technology. Swarm drones that attacked in coordinated groups. Kinetic weapons that struck from orbit. Electronic warfare systems that confused enemy sensors. These weapons violate 18 different treaties, a coalition scientist said, looking at Park's designs. Good, Park said. Those treaties were written by people who thought war had rules. War has only one rule: win or die. Meanwhile, Commander Taemin Ryu led special operations teams deep into Vrexian territory. They didn't fight battles. They sabotaged supply depots. They assassinated commanders. They spread false intelligence. The coalition observers were horrified. This wasn't warfare. This was terrorism. It's necessary, Ryu told them. Every supply depot we destroy means fewer ships at the front. Every commander we kill means confusion in their ranks. This is how you win wars. General Rixval watched everything with disgust. He had been assigned as an observer, forced to witness what he called the corruption of coalition values. He filed reports daily, demanding Daiwan's removal. But Velmora protected the human admiral. For now. The Vrexians came 3 months later. Intelligence reported a major offensive heading for the outer reach. 200 enemy ships. Daiwan had 30. By traditional thinking, they should evacuate and abandon the sector. Instead, Daiwan smiled. Begin the evacuation, he ordered. Empty all 3 worlds. Get every civilian out. Sir, we're abandoning our territory? A coalition officer asked. No, Daiwan said. We're baiting a trap. Those worlds aren't important. The Vrexian fleet is. We let them take the territory. Then we take their fleet. Rixaval was furious. This is cowardice. We should defend those worlds. Defend them and lose, Daiwan said calmly. Or sacrifice them and win. Your choice, General. But I command here. The evacuation took 2 weeks. Millions of people fled to safer systems. The worlds were left behind, seemingly abandoned. But Daiwan's teams worked around the clock. They planted mines in orbit. They rigged industrial facilities to explode. They filled the computer networks with false data. And they waited. The Vrexian fleet arrived expecting resistance. They found empty worlds. Confused, they landed troops and began establishing bases. Intelligence reports they captured suggested the coalition was in full retreat, abandoning the entire sector. The Vrexian commander, believing he had won easily, consolidated his forces on the 3 worlds. They're all in position, Hana reported from the Indomitable. Her ship was hidden in a nearby asteroid field, along with the rest of the fleet. 200 ships plus ground forces, all clustered around those 3 worlds. Spring the trap, Daiwan ordered. The orbital mines activated first. Hundreds of explosions rippled through the Vrexian fleet. Ships that were clustered too close together were caught in chain reactions. Shields failed. Hulls breached. Chaos spread. Then the industrial facilities exploded. Massive detonations that sent debris and radiation washing over nearby ships. The Vrexians tried to retreat, but their formations were broken. They were disorganized and confused. That's when Daiwan's fleet struck. 30 ships against a disorganized 200. But these weren't formation tactics. This was coordinated chaos. Human ships used stealth to get close. Coalition ships provided heavy firepower. They targeted the Vrexian command vessels first, cutting off coordination. Lieutenant Yoo-jin Choi led her fighter squadron in devastating strikes. Young and fearless, she flew patterns that coalition pilots thought were impossible. Her squadron destroyed 3 times their number, using speed and unpredictability instead of formation discipline. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 140 Vrexian ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors fled in disorder. Daiwan's fleet had lost 4 ships. The outer reach was secure. The coalition crews were stunned. They had won. Actually won. For the first time in 2 years, they had achieved a real victory. The alien officers who had doubted human tactics now looked at Daiwan with new respect. But Rixaval was not impressed. "You won without honor," he said to Daiwan. You deceived the enemy. You sacrificed territory. You used cowardly tactics. This is not how civilized species wage war. No, Day One agreed. This is how survivors wage war. You can keep your honor, General. I'll keep my people alive. News of the victory spread through coalition space. The High Council held another vote. This time more counselors supported expanding human command. They were desperate. They were losing. And humans had just shown them that another way was possible. Belmora presented the results to the council. We have held the outer reach. We have won our first major victory in 2 years. The humans have proven their methods work. I propose we grant Admiral Kim command authority over 3 additional sectors. The debate was fierce. Many counselors feared what they were becoming. They worried that fighting like humans would corrupt them. But fear of extinction was stronger than fear of change. The vote passed, barely. Day One now commanded a battle group of 70 ships. Captain Hana Lee was promoted and given her own task force. Dr. Park's weapons were approved for mass production. Commander Ryu's special operations tactics were adopted throughout coalition intelligence. The human doctrine was becoming official policy, but success came with a price. Coalition crews trained in human tactics reported nightmares. They struggled with the moral weight of deception and ambush. Their cultures valued straightforward combat and honorable death. This new way of fighting felt wrong, even when it worked. Hana noticed it in her crews. Alien officers would complete missions successfully, then request transfers. They couldn't handle the psychological burden. Human tactics required accepting that war was ugly, brutal, and without honor. Not every species was ready for that truth. Intelligence reports began arriving that worried Day One. The Vrexians were adapting. They were studying human tactics and learning to counter them. They started using deception themselves. They began avoiding direct combat. They were becoming more like humans. This is what you wanted, Park said, reviewing the reports with Daiwan, an enemy that fights smart instead of predictable. I know, Daiwan said quietly. But I didn't expect them to learn so fast. We've taught the galaxy a new way to fight. Now everyone is using it, including our enemies. Velamora visited him in his quarters. The ancient counselor seemed troubled. Admiral, we are winning battles, our losses are decreasing, but I wonder if we are losing something more important. What do you mean? Daiwan asked. Our identity, she said. Our values. The things that made us different from species who conquer and destroy. We are becoming what we fight. Is survival worth that cost? Day One had no answer. He thought about Earth's history. The wars, the atrocities, the terrible things humans had done to each other in the name of survival. Now he was teaching those same lessons to the galaxy. I don't know, he finally said. But I know that dead civilizations don't get to debate philosophy. You have to survive first. Then you can worry about what kind of civilization you want to be. Velamora left without responding. Daiwan stared out at the stars. The tide of war was turning. The coalition was winning. But he wondered what victory would look like when it finally came. Would the galaxy recognize itself? Would he recognize himself? Galactic Union. Humans sat on the Security Council beside the ancient races. Former Vrexian territories were being integrated through painful negotiations and careful compromises. It wasn't perfect, but it was peace. Admiral Daiwan Kim was now Supreme Commander of Union Defense Forces. He looked older than his years. Gray hair, lines around his eyes, the weight of all those decisions, all those deaths marked on his face. He trained the next generation of commanders, teaching them the doctrine that had saved the galaxy. But he always warned them about the cost. War isn't glorious, he told a class of young officers, both human and alien. It's not heroic. It's brutal and ugly, and it breaks people. We won because we were willing to do terrible things. Remember that. Remember what we became, so you can choose if that's who you want to be. Captain Hana Lee commanded the flagship Unity. It was jointly built by humans and former enemies, a symbol of the new era. Her crew was perfectly mixed. Species that had killed each other 5 years ago now worked side by side. She had become a living example of what integration could achieve. But she carried ghosts. 3 ships named Indomitable, hundreds of crew members dead under her command. She did her duty perfectly, but those who knew her well saw the distance in her eyes. Part of her was still back in the war, still watching her people die. Dr. Jae-hyun Park headed the Union Weapons Research Division. He still created new technologies, but now he also created safeguards, systems to prevent misuse, limits on how weapons could be deployed. He was trying to put the genie back in the bottle, knowing it was probably impossible. "I can't undo what I made," he told engineer Soman Kang. "But I can try to make sure the next generation thinks before they use it. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it has to be." Commander Taemin Ryu ran Union intelligence. His decision to reveal the truth about the Vrexians had ended the war, but not everyone thanked him for it. Some humans thought he had betrayed their advantage. Some aliens thought he had exposed coalition crimes. He worked in the shadows, trusted by few but essential to everyone. Lieutenant Yoojin Choi, now a wing commander, trained new pilots. She represented the war's one clear success. A generation that saw no difference between species. To her, human tactics and alien wisdom were just tools. You used what worked. You adapted. You survived. She was the future the galaxy needed. Counselor Velmora served as Union Chancellor. The ancient being who had first given humans a chance now led the galaxy through reconstruction. She was proud of what they had achieved, but worried about what they had lost. "We survived," she often said. "But at what cost to our souls?" Ambassador Yoon Ji-han worked on reconciliation programs, helping former enemies learn to trust each other. It was slow, painful work. Many on both sides wanted revenge more than peace. But she persisted, believing that the future depended on healing the past. Warlord Zenthak led the Rexian Integration Authority. His people were becoming part of the Union, but the transition was difficult. Many Vrexians still saw themselves as warriors without a war. Zenthak was trying to give them a new purpose. Defense instead of conquest. Protection instead of domination. The galaxy had changed in fundamental ways. Every species now trained in human tactical doctrine. War academies taught deception and asymmetric warfare alongside traditional combat. The old honor codes were mostly abandoned. Practical survival had replaced noble principles. It worked. But it cost something essential. Dr. Mi Sun-o's psychological studies showed the long-term effects. Post-war trauma affected entire populations. Species that had never known moral ambiguity now struggled with it constantly. Some adapted well, others were permanently changed. The galaxy had learned to fight dirty, but the psychological cost was still being calculated. A memorial stood on the Union capital world. It listed the names of the war dead. Millions of them. Human and alien names side by side. Daewon visited sometimes, reading the names of people who had died under his command. Zenthak visited too, mourning his own fallen. Sometimes they stood there together. 2 old warriors who had learned that victory wasn't worth celebrating. "Do you regret it?" Zenthak asked once, standing before the memorial. "Teaching the galaxy your way of war?" "Every day," Daewon said. "But I'd do it again. Because the alternative was extinction. We saved the galaxy. We just had to break it first to do it." The real threat arrived on a quiet day. The Devourers. That's what the Union called them because they had no other name. The extragalactic force that had destroyed the Rexian homeworlds. They appeared at the galactic rim without warning. Early reconnaissance showed an enemy beyond anything the Union had faced before. The Devourers didn't conquer planets. They consumed them. They didn't negotiate. They didn't communicate. They just advanced, harvesting everything in their path. Planets, stars, entire systems. They were a force of nature made mechanical, and they were heading toward Union space. Daewon called an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Humans, former coalition species, and Vrexians sat together. "This is why we needed to stop fighting each other," he said. "This is the real war. Everything we learned, every tactic we developed, we'll need it all. And it might not be enough." The Union assembled a fleet to make first contact. Captain Hana Lee commanded. The Unity led a battle group of 200 ships, the best the Union had. They met the Devourers at a border system. The battle that followed was horrifying. The Devourers adapted to every tactic instantly. Human deception didn't work. Vrexian aggression was useless. Traditional coalition strategy failed completely. The enemy learned and countered everything. They were perfect fighting machines refined by consuming 1,000 species across multiple galaxies. Hana's fleet was getting destroyed. She tried everything she knew. Human tactics, alien wisdom, the Cascade Network. Nothing worked. The Devourers just kept coming, relentless and unstoppable. 70 ships were destroyed in the first hour. The Union fleet was losing. Then something unexpected happened. The crews stopped following doctrine entirely. Human, alien, and Vrexian officers started improvising together, not using any one species' tactics, but combining them in real time, creating something new, something that had never existed before the war brought everyone together. Eugen Choi led a fighter wing that mixed human aggression, alien precision, and Vrexian adaptability. They moved like nothing the Devourers had seen before, not following patterns, not using doctrine, just creating new tactics on the fly, drawing from dozens of species combat experience. It worked. Barely. The Union fleet managed to withdraw with heavy casualties. 60% losses, but they had bought time. More importantly, they had learned something. The Devourers could counter any established doctrine, but they couldn't predict pure improvisation from species thinking together. Hana reported back to Daiwan. They're stronger than anything we've faced, smarter, more adaptable, but we found something. When we stopped fighting like any one species and started fighting like all of us together, we surprised them. It's not human tactics anymore. It's something new. Daiwan addressed the Defense Council one last time. Representatives from every Union species watched him. Former enemies, former friends, all survivors now. We taught the galaxy to fight, he said. We showed you human warfare. We changed you. And yes, you lost something. Your innocence, your honor, your old ways. But you gained something too. You gained each other. He gestured to the assembled leaders. Humans fight dirty. Vrexians fight aggressively. The old coalition species fight with discipline and wisdom. Alone, none of us can beat the Devourers. But together, combining everything we've learned, maybe we have a chance. That's what the war really taught us. Not how to fight like humans. How to fight like a galaxy. Velmora stood. You changed us, Admiral. You humans brought war to the galaxy in a way we'd never known before. You made us brutal. You made us ruthless. You made us survivors. And now perhaps you've made us strong enough to face what's coming. The Union began preparing for the real war. Ships were built by the thousands. Every species contributed its strengths. Human innovation, Vrexian adaptability, the wisdom of the ancient races. Training combined all their doctrines into something unique. The galaxy was becoming something new, something that had never existed before. Daiwan stood alone in his quarters looking at old photos. His crew from the first battle. Most of them were dead now. He thought about what he had done, the tactics he had taught, the changes he had caused, the price the galaxy had paid. Was it worth it? He asked the empty room. No one answered. Maybe there was no answer. The galaxy had survived, but it had changed forever. The ancient races would never get back their innocence. The noble traditions were gone. War would never be civilized again, but they were alive, and they were together, former enemies fighting side by side. Species that had barely known each other now trusted with their lives. Maybe that was worth the cost. Maybe survival always came with a price.